Hi there, this is Dylan from Teach English Spain, and this is my new podcast, which is all about teaching English as a foreign language in this fantastic country, Spain. So, just to tell you a little bit about me, I am based in Granada in the south of Spain, and I run Trinity Cert TESOL courses down there. And if you're interested, go to www.teachenglishspain.com. Okay, so teaching English in Spain. Well, there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands, of English speakers working in Spain. Why are they here? What keeps them here? Why don't they go home? And what's life like here for English teachers? So these are some of the questions that I'll be exploring in this podcast or in this series. Now let's be honest, who wouldn't want to live and work in this wonderful country? When people think about Spain, they think about the sun, the sand, the sea, the siesta, the sangria, and lots of other things beginning with the letter S. Now, just like most things in life, living and working in Spain has its pros and its cons. And if you speak to a few people here who've been here for some time, and they'll tell you some pretty awful stories about some of the problems they've had with landlords, with bosses, with bureaucracy, with neighbours, with students, etc. But in general, I think most people here teaching English as a foreign language are relatively happy with their life. And that's what most fluent English speakers end up doing. We end up teaching English as a foreign language here in Spain. Now, the majority, I guess, of people do it for a year or 2 years. These are your typical gap year TEFL teachers. They come here, they spend a couple of years, have a great time, and then go back to their home countries, and maybe they continue with their studies, or they find work, or they settle down. And then lots of other people stay here for longer. They end up building a life here. Now, some people teach English as a means to supplement their other work. Maybe they're writers, musicians, artists, they work in IT, whatever. They work in real estate. And there are some people like myself who end up becoming professional English language teachers, if you like. And we get higher level qualifications and then end up doing things like running our own school, or becoming teacher trainers, or working in the English language teaching publishing industry, or do some marketing or promotion work for either language schools or some business in the English language teaching industry, which is a fairly large industry actually here. So in this post, I'd just like to give you kind of an overview and answer a few questions about teaching English here in Spain. Now, my answers are based on my personal experience, anecdotes, observations, and my knowledge about the industry here. But of course, everyone's experience is slightly different. So my first question is, are you the type of person who is cut out to teach English as a foreign language here in Spain? Well, I guess there are a couple of essential requirements, and one of course is to do with your language level. So you must speak and write English reasonably well. You must be a fluent speaker, really. You don't need a degree in linguistics, but you need to be able to communicate clearly. Now, most relatively well-educated, normal, native English speakers are obviously able to communicate relatively well or fluently in their first language. You don't need a degree in linguistics, you don't need a degree in the English language, but that probably helps. But you do need to be able to communicate clearly and comfortably and fluently in English. Now, if you speak English as a second or a foreign language, and you speak it fluently, then you too can work here in Spain as an English teacher. At Teach English in Spain, we really do not discriminate against non-native speakers of English. I've trained lots of teachers from all over the world, and some of the best teachers have been people who actually themselves learned English as a foreign language. maybe because you empathise and you understand the challenges of learning a foreign language a bit more than lots of native English speakers who have never really learnt a foreign language up to a high level. But if you do speak English as a second language, then it probably helps if you have a qualification to show, to demonstrate that you have a high level of English. So this could be a C1 or a C2 qualification. If you don't know about these levels, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, then I recommend do some research on the CEFR, which is the Common European Framework of References for Languages. Basically, a C1 or a C2 is advanced or proficient in English. So you need to be a fluent English speaker. And also I think the other essential requirement is that you have the type of personality that's conducive to helping people learn English as a foreign language. So it helps if you're patient, if you're friendly, if you're calm, if you're able to manage your time and your workload quite well, and if you're genuinely interested in other people and helping them. Okay. And if you have these two qualities, then you can learn the technical skills of teaching, and probably through a training course, and then after that training course you'll be able to improve your skills by working as an English language teacher. Now you're probably thinking at this point that there must be some other requirements or special qualifications that you need to teach English in Spain. Well, if you want to work in the private sector, and there are hundreds, probably hundreds of thousands or at least tens of thousands of private language academies, private English academies all over Spain, then actually you don't need a qualification, but it certainly helps. There's lots of competition here, and obviously you need to have a certain amount of competence and teaching skills to perform well in the classroom. If you're just an English speaker and then you walk into a classroom and you've got no teaching experience or no teaching qualification, then you're going to struggle. And probably the students will complain about you because they'll think, I'm paying this person and they don't seem to know much more than me. They don't seem to be that professional. They don't seem to know what they're doing. So I highly recommend a training course. But it's not a requirement. And in fact, there are quite a few English teachers here who don't have any qualifications. Maybe they've learnt on the job, or maybe they're doing a terrible job in classrooms all over Spain. I don't really know. So, and increasingly I think because of competition, because the level of English has improved in recent years here in Spain, Spanish students and Spanish academies are a lot more picky about who they employ. They're a lot more discerning, especially if you go to a big city. You'll be found out if you don't have a teaching qualification. So just to summarise, I would say that you don't need to be a native speaker of English. Some of the best teachers are non-native English speakers. You don't need to have a degree, but it probably helps in certain ways, but it's not a requirement, unlike some other countries where people are employed as English as a foreign language teachers. You don't need to speak Spanish, but also that probably helps, especially if you're teaching kids or lower level learners, because you may have to say, shut up, stop talking Spanish, stop writing on the desk, stop hitting your partner with your pen. It helps if you can actually say these things in Spanish, as I said, especially if you're teaching kids or teenagers. And you don't need to have a certificate, normally called a TEFL certificate, teaching English as a foreign language, or sometimes a TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages. But I would say you should do so, if only because I think you have a professional obligation to do a good job. And if you're not trained, then you're probably not going to teach your learners that well. Now, speaking of certificates, there are lots of TEFL courses you can take. Because teaching English, whether it's to kids or young learners or adults, can be challenging. Kids can be terrifying if you don't know the basics of classroom management, and adults will complain if you're not really able to answer their questions about grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, etc. So I would say training is a very, very good idea. And most TEFL courses will teach you the basics of language awareness, classroom management, and teaching skills. giving you lots of practical techniques, practical strategies for planning and delivering effective classes. So I would say get some training. And there are lots of TEFL courses you could take. In fact, there are several options. You could do an online TEFL course. You could do a weekend TEFL course. You could do what's called a blended TEFL course, which is online and face-to-face. So maybe 6 months online and then a 1 week or 2 week practical teaching component. And the most common is a 4-week full-time TEFL course. So these normally take 120 hours, so that's 30 hours a week, maybe longer. And you will have a teaching practice component where you give lessons to real learners. And the minimum requirement internationally is usually 6 hours. And I would recommend you take this type of course, because your trainers on the course will be able to say that you're able to walk into a classroom and deliver a good class. Online courses can be useful if you want to learn a bit about the theory of teaching English as a foreign language, but you don't get the practical experience. And really the practical experience is worth its weight in gold. That's really what shows you and gives you the skills to teach English. So this is what I would definitely recommend, that you get you take a 4-week TEFL course. So as I said, there are lots of TEFL courses available, but they should be at least 100 hours. 120 hours is much better, with the 6 hours of observed teaching practice. And you want to make sure your trainers are qualified and experienced. And it's best for this course to have some sort of external moderation or assessment, which means that someone from the organisation or someone who's basically an expert trainer will come in, observe the course and make sure it meets all the requirements. Make sure it does what it says on the tin or on the can. Which are called accredited courses, and I've worked on courses which haven't really been accredited or haven't been so well known, and they've been good courses, but the trainee teachers have finished the course, they've done well, and then they've tried to look for jobs and found that their certificate isn't recognised by employers, which is why I recommend that you get one from either Cambridge or Trinity. These are the two most recognised institutions here in Spain, and if you have a Cambridge TEFL certificate called a CELTA or a Trinity TESOL certificate, then that will definitely maximise your chances of finding work here in Spain. I would always recommend Trinity Cert TESOL because I run Trinity Cert TESOL courses here in Granada, so maybe I'm a bit biased there. Now, if you do decide to take a course, you have lots of choices. You could do the course at home, or you could actually come here to Spain and take the course. There are some advantages of coming here to Spain and taking the course, and basically they are, well, you'll learn about teaching Spanish students, so they'll prepare you for the real job of teaching English here in Spain. You can learn or brush up on your Spanish, and you get a feel for the culture. If you do the 4-week course here, you get to know what it's like to live in Spain, albeit only for a short time. You can also make some local contacts. Okay? Many people who take the course here in Spain are offered work before they finish. And of course you can start applying for jobs, and you can get to know what the best schools are and what the schools you have to watch out for are in the town or the city where you do the course. And also, of course, you build up a support team of trainers and fellow trainees, which can really help you when you make that move to a new culture, to a new country, and deal with, the initial culture shock issues. So that's kind of an overview about teaching English here in Spain. As I said, if you're interested in knowing more, please go to our website www.teachenglishspain.com, and we offer courses here in Granada, so if you're interested, feel free to get in touch. We're running one here in January 2008 if you're interested. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope to speak to you in the next podcast. Take care.